Fame, fortune, and devastating secrets. The cast of All in the Family became TV legends. But off-screen, their lives were haunted by suicide, addiction, betrayal, and shocking loneliness. Some died forgotten. Others lived with wounds no one ever saw. You think you know them? Think again. This is the dark, untold truth behind America's most beloved sitcom. Carroll O'Connor as Archie Bunker. He was America's loudest, most lovable bigot. But behind the gruff voice of Archie Bunker, Carroll O'Connor was a man torn apart by personal tragedy. The Emmy-winning actor became a cultural icon overnight, yet no one saw the pain lurking beneath the fame. For years, he and his wife longed for a child, until they adopted a baby boy, Hugh. But what began as a dream soon spiraled into a nightmare. Hugh's battle with drug addiction consumed the family, ending in an unthinkable tragedy. At just 32, Hugh took his own life just months after becoming a father. O'Connor never recovered. The man who made millions laugh now lived in shadows of sorrow. He publicly declared war on the drug dealer he blamed for his son's death, fighting a brutal legal battle while trying to hold his crumbling marriage together. His Malibu home, once a sanctuary, became a prison of grief. When O'Connor died in 2001 from a heart attack, many remembered him as a TV legend, but few knew he died with a broken heart. Behind Archie Bunker's bluster was a father who never stopped mourning. Sherman Hemsley as George Jefferson. On screen, he was bold, brash, and unforgettable. But behind the swagger of George Jefferson was a man paralyzed by loneliness. Sherman Hemsley made millions laugh, yet his real life was eerily silent. He never married, never had children. Abandoned by his father, he grew up craving love but never trusting it. Instead, he filled his Texas home with hundreds of dolls, each one a substitute for the family he never built. Hollywood adored his sharp wit and wild charisma, but when the cameras stopped rolling, he retreated into isolation. His few romantic relationships ended quickly. Sherman always backed away when things got real. The laughter he gave others never reached him. As fame faded and age crept in, he turned to yoga and vegetarianism, trying to heal the wounds fame couldn't touch. Then came the final heartbreak. When he died in 2012, his body lay undiscovered for over 3 months. Even in death, he was alone. His will became a courtroom battleground, and his name made headlines not for his legacy, but for a legal fight. Did Sherman Hemsley's final days shock you? Isabel Sanford as Louise Wheezy Jefferson. She broke barriers on screen, but off-screen, Isabel Sanford broke silently under the weight of pain. As Louise Wheezy Jefferson, she was calm, wise, and unshakably strong, the first black actress to win an Emmy for a leading role in a comedy. But while the cameras captured her grace, no one saw the scars she carried from childhood. Raised in a home ruled by violence, Isabel escaped at just 14, only to find herself in a loveless marriage a few years later. After a decade of emotional strain, she divorced her husband and found herself alone with 3 children in a racist industry that offered her little more than scraps. She took on cleaning jobs to survive while fighting daily to be heard in Hollywood. Success eventually came, but at a cost. Years of financial fear, exhaustion, and a heart weakened by constant stress. She lived for her children but died with the silent fatigue of a woman who had endured too much. In 2004, she passed away quietly at 86, and even her legacy became entangled in tax disputes. Behind the smile of Wheezy was a warrior, one who never stopped fighting. Jason Wingreen as Harry Snowden. He played the easygoing bartender who witnessed the chaos. But off-camera, Jason Wingreen was a man haunted by war, broken by silence, and slowly consumed by despair. Before Hollywood, he served in the Korean War, where he saw horrors no one should ever witness. He returned a changed man, not with medals, but with invisible wounds. PTSD crept into his home, and alcohol became his weapon of escape and destruction. While he brought warmth and wit to all in the family, Wingreen's real home life was anything but cheerful. His wife and children endured years of emotional distance, cold silences, and outbursts. Even his brief brush with fame as the original voice of Boba Fett in Star Wars ended in heartbreak when he was unceremoniously replaced. With his Hollywood dreams shattered, he retreated deeper into isolation, aging in silence while Parkinson's disease slowly robbed him of his speech. In 2015, he died in a nursing home, his name barely mentioned. But behind that forgotten face was a man who gave everything and received too little in return. Did you know the original voice of Boba Fett lived with such torment? Tell us in the comments, and share this with someone who remembers Harry at the bar. Jean Stapleton as Edith Bunker. She was the sweet soul of all in the family, the warm, gentle voice that softened Archie's fire. But Jean Stapleton's real life was far more tragic than her beloved TV character. Off-screen, she was a woman torn between her passion for theater and the strain of a crumbling marriage. While America adored Edith Bunker, Jean was watching her personal life slowly fall apart. Her husband, stage director William Puch, was her partner in both art and life, until one day, he was gone. In 1983, William died suddenly of a heart attack, and Jean was left alone to carry the weight of their theatrical legacy. The laughter she brought to millions vanished from her own life. Behind closed doors, she buried herself in books and gardening, escaping into silence as grief became her constant companion. Hollywood moved on. She did not. Years passed, and Stapleton became a recluse, her spotlight dimming with each passing year. When she died in 2013, many remembered Edith. Few knew Jean had died with a heart quietly broken decades earlier. Which part of Jean's hidden life surprised you most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more heartbreaking Hollywood truths. Mike Evans as Lionel Jefferson. He was young, sharp, and full of fire, the perfect match for Archie Bunker's stubborn conservatism. But Mike Evans's real life was anything but the confident, witty Lionel Jefferson we saw on screen. At just 21, he became a breakout star, later helping write the groundbreaking show Good Times. But while his professional life soared, his marriage crashed into heartbreak. At the height of his fame, Mike married, hoping to find stability. Instead, he found arguments, pressure, and a growing emotional distance. By 1980, it was over. Divorced and alone, Evans disappeared from the spotlight. Far from the confident young man America had adored, he now lived a quiet, isolated life, his health deteriorating, his fame long gone. Then came the cruel twist. In 2006, he was diagnosed with advanced throat cancer. Just 3 months later, he was gone, emaciated, exhausted, and out of time. His wife and daughter could only watch in helpless silence. The fire that once lit up living rooms across America was extinguished far too soon. Bert Mustin as Justin Quigley. He made audiences smile as the lovable old man who dropped by with a chuckle and a kind word. But in real life, Bert Mustin was anything but cheerful. At 87, he was one of the oldest actors ever cast in All in the Family, a gentle presence on screen and a heartbroken soul off it. For over 50 years, he shared his life with his beloved wife, Frances. They had no children, but they had each other until 1969 when she passed away. That loss shattered him. Alone in his final years, Bert found comfort only in the quiet companionship of his cats. He lived modestly, surrounded by fading photos and fading memories. The man who brought warmth to millions now lived in cold silence. He kept acting not for fame or money, but to escape the loneliness. Behind his signature smile was a grief he never outran. When he died in 1977, just days before turning 93, he left behind no family, only fans who had no idea how alone he truly was. Did Bert's story break your heart? Type R.I.P. Bert in the comments if you still remember his gentle laugh. Betty Garrett as Irene Lorenzo. She was the smart, no-nonsense neighbor who stood toe-to-toe with Archie Bunker. But behind her confident voice, Betty Garrett lived through betrayal, blacklisting, and unbearable grief. A Broadway darling turned TV star, Betty married fellow actor Larry Parks, and together they seemed unstoppable until the communist witch hunts of the 1950s came crashing in. Larry was forced to testify before Congress. Betty was blacklisted by Hollywood. Her rising career shattered overnight. For 7 long years, she was cast out, silenced, reduced from leading lady to desperate housewife. Though she stayed by Larry's side, the bitterness of lost dreams lingered in their home like a ghost. Then in 1975, just as she returned to the screen, Larry died suddenly of a heart attack. That moment ended 31 years of love and plunged Betty into a silence deeper than any blacklist ever could. She lived on for decades, her house growing quieter, her spotlight dimmer. By the time she passed away in 2011, her name had faded, but her story still whispers of a woman who stood tall through heartbreak and injustice. Bob Hastings as Tommy Kelsey. To viewers, he was the cheerful bar owner, a background character who served up beer and banter. But Bob Hastings' real-life battles ran far deeper than anything shown on screen. Before fame, he fought in World War II and lived through the hell of D-Day. The horror stayed with him, branded into his soul. When he returned home, he brought the war with him. Haunted by trauma, Bob turned to alcohol to cope, and that decision would scar his family for decades. He married Joan Rice and had 4 children, but behind closed doors, the household was filled with tension. PTSD turned him unpredictable, his outbursts cutting into the quiet of family dinners. Though he loved his wife, the war had claimed the best parts of him, and left behind a man trying to outrun his own past. He kept acting to support his family, but never fully escaped the battlefield in his mind. In his final years, illness and regret became constant companions. When he died in 2014 from prostate cancer, many remembered his voice, his smile, but few knew the torment behind it. Alan Melvin as Barney Hefner. He was Archie Bunker's loyal sidekick, lovable, naive, always ready with a joke. But Alan Melvin's real life was a far cry from the light-hearted laughter he brought to TV. Behind the scenes, his marriage of over 60 years was not one of fairy tale devotion. It was a quiet battlefield of alcohol, fading fame, and emotional distance. Melvin married Amalia Fayanina Cerro in 1944, and together they raised 2 children. But his career hit a wall during Hollywood's blacklist era, and as acting jobs dried up, he drowned his frustration in drinking. Alcohol became his escape and his family's prison. The man who voiced cartoon characters and played cheerful roles came home to long silences, missed dinners, and a growing void. Voice work later helped keep the bills paid, but the joy never quite returned. His wife stood by him until the end, not because it was easy, but because she had to be strong for both of them. When Alan Melvin died of lung cancer in 2008, fans mourned the funny best friend on screen, unaware of the quiet storms he'd faced at home. Vincent Gardenia as Frank Lorenzo. He was the cheerful Italian neighbor, always bringing humor and heart to the chaos of All in the Family. But in real life, Vincent Gardenia lived in near-total solitude, a man celebrated by millions, yet loved by few. Born in Naples and raised in New York, Vincent devoted his life to the stage. He won a Tony Award. He charmed audiences. But behind the curtain, no wife, no children, no one waiting at home. He never married, claiming that love would interfere with his craft. But the truth ran deeper. He feared vulnerability, commitment, and the pain of loss. His Brooklyn apartment was quiet, filled only with scripts and the echo of performances past. He spent holidays alone, birthdays on tour, and poured everything he had into pretending to be someone else. Then, on Christmas Day in 1992, while on tour for a play, Vincent died alone in his hotel room from a heart attack. The phone was still in his hand, as if he had tried to call for help, but no one answered. The world lost a brilliant performer, but few realized how heartbreakingly alone he was when the curtain finally fell. Mel Stewart as Henry Jefferson. He was fierce, fiery, and unfiltered, the perfect counterpunch to Archie Bunker's bigotry. But Mel Stewart's off-screen life was consumed by a different kind of fight, one for justice, one that slowly fractured his family. As Henry Jefferson, he brought heat to every scene. As a real-life civil rights activist, he brought fire to the streets and a target to his back. Monitored by the FBI, labeled a threat, Mel's activism put constant strain on his marriage. His wife Annie lived in quiet fear. Each protest, each speech, carried the risk of arrest or worse. And while the world admired his courage, his family paid the hidden price of absence, stress, and endless worry. In his later years, tragedy struck again. Alzheimer's stole his memories, one piece at a time, until he no longer recognized his wife or even himself. The man who once roared with passion was left silent, lost in a fog of forgetfulness. When he passed in 2002, his family mourned not just the man he had been, but the man they'd lost long before his death. Rob Reiner as Michael Meathead Stivic. He was the long-haired liberal who challenged Archie Bunker's every word, a voice of a new generation. But Rob Reiner's real-life battles weren't just political. They were personal, intimate, and deeply human. As Meathead, he became a household name. As a director, he became a Hollywood powerhouse. But behind the camera, his heart was often out of focus. His first marriage to actress Penny Marshall seemed picture-perfect. He even adopted her daughter, Tracy, as his own. But success and ambition came with a cost. Their marriage crumbled under the weight of two stars orbiting separate worlds. When they divorced in 1981, Reiner was left emotionally adrift, a father figure clinging to a broken family and a man chasing meaning in his work. Though he later found happiness with Michelle Singer, the shadows of his past never fully left him. His films like A Few Good Men and When Harry Met Sally became iconic, but behind every frame was a man using cinema to fill the silence in his soul. Now, at 78, he continues to direct and advocate, still searching, still healing. Sally Struthers as Gloria Bunker Stivic. She was the daughter who dared to defy Archie Bunker, a blend of softness and rebellion that defined a generation of women. But Sally Struthers' real life was marked by love lost, public scrutiny, and a fading spotlight she never asked to lose. At just 24, she became a star. But behind the smile of Gloria was a woman quietly breaking. In 1977, she married psychiatrist William Reiner. At first, it looked like a Hollywood happy ending. They had a daughter, Samantha. But soon, the cracks began to show. Career demands, personal differences, and the glare of fame tore the marriage apart. By 1983, she was divorced, a single mom battling not just loneliness, but lawsuits, financial pressures, and a brutal industry that turns cold when you're no longer the it girl. She withdrew from the spotlight, appearing in regional theater, clinging to the roles that still gave her purpose. The fame faded, the headlines stopped, but the scars stayed. Now at 78, Sally lives in Oregon, finding comfort in family and the quiet stage, far from the fame that once defined her. Danielle Brisebois as Stephanie Mills. She was the wide-eyed orphan who brought new life to all in the family's final seasons. But behind the child star glow, Danielle Brisebois faced the crushing weight of early fame and the deep loneliness it left behind. At just 9 years old, she was America's sweetheart. But growing up under the spotlight meant missing out on a real childhood. Romantic relationships never lasted, consumed by work, fame, and pressure. When Danielle left acting to pursue music, many called it career suicide, but she didn't listen. Instead, she buried herself in studios, sacrificing personal life for lyrics. Every song became a confession. Every beat, a heartbeat she wasn't allowed to show. For years, she fought to stay relevant in a world that forgot child stars as quickly as it crowned them. But there's a silver lining. Danielle reinvented herself as a successful songwriter and producer. Today, at 56, she lives in Los Angeles with her husband, musician Nick Lashley, and their twin daughters. After decades of noise, she finally found her quiet.